In the heart of Alaska's interior, where the days stretch endlessly and winters are long and test resilience, there's a place where people turn, not just for banking, but for trust, support, and a sense of community. This is the story of a vision created more than 60 years ago and the people who built a bank that cared more for people than profits. From its humble beginning in a small building in downtown Fairbanks, Mount McKinley Bank has become the financial backbone of the interior and the financial cornerstone of our community. It's more than just a bank, it's our legacy.
You know, Fairbanks is such a special community, and that's where this bank started. That's the reason that we started, was because the people who lived in the Fairbanks North Star borough didn't have an option for mortgage lending.
If you look back at the history, why form a mutual savings bank in Fairbanks in 1965, and what was the need that it needed to fill? We
had a bank that was here. It was a thrift. It was a savings and loan. And every single mortgage that they issued, they put a prepayment penalty on. And the people who started this bank said, that's just not right. This first three people, Julian Rice, Dan Ramris, and Les Rogers, had spent many, many hours trying to coerce their friends and neighbors to come up with $3,000 each.
Those folks, those initial corporators, helped launch the bank, and quickly the bank found success.
The very first president and CEO of the bank needed to be somebody that was well-known, well-liked, and had some capacity to nurture this brand new bank. And so they chose Judge Vernon Forbes.
I remember, I think the first time I was ever in this bank, and I remember Judge Forbes sitting in the entryway and that wild carpet, very 60s. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. The president of the bank is sitting right here in the lobby behind a desk. I thought, wow, that's pretty special.
We put our meager savings in McKinley Bank when it first opened up in the 60s in Fairbanks. And we started off by finding some land that we thought would be a good place to start a campground and try to find a nice area. And I was so afraid that we were going to run into a bear all the time. That's how it got its name. And it was a big investment. And we didn't have money like that, so what do you think we did? We came to Mount McKinley Bank.
The bank opened on December 3rd, 1965 with $300,000 in assets. It was a hit from the beginning. They doubled that balance in less than a month. In 28 days, when they closed on December 31, they had $646,000 in assets. So obviously it was something that people wanted.
When the 1967 flood brought Fairbanks to a standstill, Mount McKinley Bank stood strong, staying open to help families recover, rebuild, and move forward.
I've heard stories of the flood. The flood was such a devastating thing. So you not only had to deal with what was going on in your bank building, but then you had to go out and look at every single one of those homes that you had a mortgage on, every one of them. Some of those loans were still in existence when I started working here in 1976, and you would pick one of those files up and you knew it was here in 1967, because not only did it have a little crinkle to it, you know, and you could hear it, but it definitely still had the water odor from drying out.
The 1970s brought rapid change, growth, and opportunity to the interior and the bank. As Fairbanks expanded during the pipeline era, Mount McKinley Bank grew with it, with new staff and services tailored to Alaska's working families and business owners.
I arrived in 1969, and the minute I stepped foot on the tarmac, I knew I was home. There was just something magic about it. There were so many small businesses. Downtown was really a downtown in those days. They were exciting times.
We were growing. We had more people that we needed to hire, and we started doing owner-builder construction lending, and it was very successful. We still will let you generate your own today. You have to have a pretty good plan, but we still do it today, and that's a very unusual product to offer. Not a lot of banks offer owner-builder construction lending.
Everybody that was here in the 70s remembers the big boom with the pipeline and the big bust that followed after the pipeline. And it was a couple of years to try to get everybody back on their feet, but they were with, were with the community. They were there because they also felt the bust too.
Wow, it went from raucous to quiet. A very different atmosphere. But businesses were booming, and man, I mean, money was flowing, and we thought it would never end. It did.
The other people that were important are all customers, and we had just this tremendously strong group of customers.
We first came to Mount McKinley Bank. We had some other loans from equipment, but we were building houses, and we needed spec home loans to get through the building process before we passed it on to our buyers. Mount McKinley said, that might be a thought. So I think they were one of the first and only banks at that moment that said, we'd like to take your cabin loan.
They hired the right people. Judge Forbes, as I said, was very, very good at what he did. And then we had Craig Ingham, which Bill Simon had hired Craig as a lender in the late 70s, and then Craig became president and CEO, and we had massive growth and expansion under Craig. And one of Craig's great things that he did was to bring on a full line of commercial banking.
Well, you know, I was with the bank as a small commercial customer in 1986 with my first 4 days of deposits at Jaybird's Wing World, and I didn't know how to make out the deposit slip to take them to the bank. I was that green. If you're a small town guy and you believe in small town values and how small towns function, there's no better place to be than at McKinley Bank, and there's no better group of lenders and support staff and tellers and management and the whole infrastructure to support a borrower, whether he's new and young at Jaybird's Wing World in 1986 or old and cynical, get off my lawn the way I am in 2025.
We went through a period of contraction in the banking industry from the mid-'80s to 1990, basically a 5-year period. And we saw about 7, maybe 8 banks fail during that period, so there was consolidation of the banking industry. And several of the banks survived that period because of their conservative management and sound banking practices, and one of them was Mount McKinley Bank.
To be able to handle those hard hits and those times when people were scared, maybe give them some kind of financial support or encourage them, you know, it's like, that's exactly what this town needs.
When we first got into town, we left Michigan, my husband and I, and we drove up here and found this community because his brother lived here. And we just fell in love with it once we got here. And we walked into Mount McKinley Bank to open an account. That's where his brother told us to go. And while I was sitting there opening the account, the gal in new accounts said she was leaving. And I said, does that mean you're hiring? And she said, just a minute. She ran over, got the supervisor, and said, can you start tomorrow?
Fairbanks became a hub, and Mount McKinley Bank was there, backing contractors, home builders, and small business owners who saw opportunity and needed a trusted partner.
Ken Thompson was an exceptional banker, very, very smart, very technical, knew ins and outs of the regulations and the state statutes. He was a very good banker, very good manager. He brought the bank along quite a ways. And then when he retired, Bill Simon took over the reins. And with Editor Bill's tutelage, we actually had our first branch out at University Avenue. And we managed to get that building built, and then we opened that in December of 1991. And we had a line to open new accounts. People who had never banked with us said, hey, you're right here, you're convenient, and they started opening accounts. It was pretty fabulous from the very first day.
When the branch came up over On University Avenue, that's kind of close to where we live, University Airport, to have a small bank that is really basically locally owned, that can offer large loans, commercial, residential, whatever it is, it takes trust.
Through the decades, Mount McKinley Bank became more than a financial institution. It became woven into the fabric of the community.
My experience with the leadership of Mount McKinley goes back quite a while. I'm a business person in the community. I work as a financial advisor, supporting people in their dreams, acquisition of dreams. And one of those big dreams would be, mortgages and homes. And so Mount McKinley's done a lot of work on a personal basis with me through our business. Mount McKinley, on a different level, is the people. I was part of the Sunrisers Rotary for 30 years, and from there spun off with a group of people doing work in the nonprofit sector through the Carol Bryce Family Center. Patty was instrumental in that work that was done. Mount McKinley was instrumental in that work that was done.
And there is a spirit of giving back that just is inherent with built into the bank's DNA.
Mount McKinley Bank is actually one of our longest standing sponsors of Alaska Nanox. Their partnership is deep and it is strong. Without them, besides it leaving an obvious hole in this organization, we would be losing one of our steadfast supporters in our community. And they bring so much more than money. They bring people, they bring energy, they bring heart, and they bring a level of genuine support to this program that goes far beyond the dollars. And it is so meaningful to Alaska Nanox.
So Mount McKinley Bank is so important to our mission of Companions, Inc. We provide caring, company, and comfort to those in need of the animal-human bond. And we go visiting to places like the Pioneer Home, we go to Denali Center, Fairbanks Memorial Hospital, Foundation Health. They're also supportive of events that we hold, like Pet Awareness Day, which is in May. And the cool thing about Mount McKinley Bank is they don't just send somebody, they help us put up flyers for the events, they help word of mouth, they tell their employees.
Well, the Mount McKinley Bank is just not about the business, and they're also about the nonprofits, because we're all in this together.
Alaska Senior Games has our bank account here. So when I got on the board, we were in need of sponsors. We had when I started on the board, there was 0 sponsors. So I go, well, we decided to go out and reach out. This was my first sponsor. I was a little nervous because I'd never gotten asked anybody for any money or any support. And Craig Ingham was awesome. And he just jumped on it right away and said, yes, we'll be in. And ever since then, that was 2010, Mount McKinley Bank has been our sponsor.
Over the last 60 years, Mount McKinley Bank has always been there for the community. So whether it started off small and grew into something bigger, I think at this point in the 60 years, we're one of the bigger donators per employee dollar-wise, which is huge.
And for at least the last 15 years, the bank has been our key name sponsor for the North Pole Championships. Mount McKinley Bank is definitely sponsoring not only an event, they're sponsoring the evolvement of our community. When I can say that Mount McKinley Bank is the key name sponsor for it, and now I go to the local plumbing shop or the HVAC shop and say, hey, I need you to be a sponsor there, they key in on it and says, well, if it's good enough for Mount McKinley Bank, then it's good enough for me to invest into because it's a good cause.
So I've had the pleasure of being able to work with many nonprofits myself in this community, and I just know that Mount McKinley Bank is a leader in nonprofit support in this community. There's a lot of nonprofits that depend on their community to lift them up and allow them to be able to provide the services to people in our community who need them. They are a leader in that area, just like they are a leader in their industry and a leader in banking in Fairbanks.
My daughter, who now works at Mount McKinley Bank, her and I chaired the United Way campaign. That's already been about 15 years ago. I almost don't want to think about how long ago it was, but We chaired the United Way campaign, and at one point, Dave and Patty Mongold, they chaired the United Way campaign. So if you look at the history of Mount McKinley Bank support for the United Way program, it's been strong. Mount McKinley Bank is one of the top benefactors of the United Way campaign. We're a leading organization identified as the top 10 contributor. Many years we would have 100% of employees contributing to the United Way campaign. And then the Board of Trustees, showing that commitment, would then, in many of those years, match the employees' contribution. So we were a big player in the success of the United Way campaign.
Being a community bank is really what I think sets us apart from any other bank, including the local banks here in town. And that is that the employees and the bank itself donate so much time and energy and money to the local community.
The bank is built on relationships, not transactions, local names, familiar faces, and trust that spans generations.
Well, it was always rock steady. It was just the business model that the bank followed, and that as a mutual, the focus was real estate, primary residential, secondary, recreational properties, that type of lending. The bank had power of commercial lending, but just had not elected to go that route. That changed in about the year 2000 when bank management and the Board of Trustees elected to expand their scope of business to include commercial lending. And actually, my own story, that's what brought me to Mount McKinley Bank in the year 2000, was to start up the commercial lending department.
I have been with Mount McKinley Bank now for about 25 years. I have them on my speed dial. They are my go-to bank. They're my go-to people.
They really focus on the community of Fairbanks, and they want to see small businesses turn into larger businesses and see people's dreams come to fruition. I went to, when I first approached the local banks with Amy, I believe our first loan was for the coffee shop.
Bart LeBon at Mount McKinley Bank worked with me and saw my vision, and he helped me facilitate that into an actual business.
We were at the end of our teaching careers about 25 years ago, and we were doing sawmilling and building. We decided we got to do something in the winter, so we decided on trailers. So we saw a niche in town.
And Mount McKinley switched with us, a sawmill logging outfit, to financing the spec houses that we were doing, as well as carrying our flooring for the trailers. And then about the same time, or just after that, we got the Wasilla location, which we had been renting a place. We bought a piece of land there, and they financed that. They financed another lot in Anchorage. So their willingness to finance these pieces of property were critical in our being able to succeed with the business.
Everything the Grizzly Bear did, Mount McKinley was right there to support us. New types of programs for loans and interest and CDs, and trying to be competitive with other big banks in the United States. And that's a challenge for a small bank. But they have a lot of flexibility being a mutual bank, and they can give back to the community, and they can make decisions. Like with loans, sometimes I was able to get loans. I don't think if I was working with a big bank outside in the lower 48, I don't think I would have gotten the funds, actually.
We made many of these commercial loans at prime as our starting point. And right away, borrowers could say, wow, this is the only bank in the market at the time that was willing to do that.
Once Bart got on, things working right in the commercial loan area, there's the growing pains, and we had to get the right people in the right spots. We had to get the right computer systems in place. And once we had that and he felt comfortable, he said, we have to look at some other options. And so he talked to Craig, and he said, I think we need to look into North Pole. We built a huge facility in North Pole for a branch bank. We put in a community room that the nonprofit organizations can use after hours. We support the branch. The branch supports the community in every way they can, all of the nonprofits that are out there, as far as the businesses that are out there. So we're here to stay, and the same for Delta. When we go into a community, we go into the community to stay, and we're not going to wait 5 years and say, okay, this isn't for us, and walk away. We are there as a partner to that community.
That's the noticeable thing when you get into the communities outside of Fairbanks, you know, and it really helps that area too, because same thing trickles over there. Maybe the lone person there is familiar with Delta and the local people, and it really helps rather than just a trip into Fairbanks.
Well, I've been here 25 years. I came up for employment purposes. When I got here, one of the first persons I met was Patty Mungo. Knowing that she was in banking, it just kind of became a natural fit. We developed a relationship. That's someone that I trust. So that's kind of where I went with my local money. So when it came time to purchase a home, refinance, and what have you, Mount McKinley was just the logical choice.
We've got many people of different, business contacts and personal contacts that we've recommend go to Mount McKinley because it's a hometown, it's the hometown bank basically is what we're talking about here.
From first-time home buyers to lifelong savers, from local nonprofits to fourth-generation businesses, the bank invested in people. Whether sponsoring youth sports, supporting hometown events, or helping someone navigate their first mortgage, Mount McKinley Bank has been a steady and trusted presence.
Well, one core value comes from being a mutual. So how does that help a community? It expands their lending capacity. They could make a larger loan than a like-sized bank. And by not chasing after stock values and dividends to an investor group, it's working to grow that advantage, that capital advantage, and Mount McKinley Bank has been very successful over the years in doing that.
With commercial lending, we were outgrowing that building that we were in, so we looked at lots of different things. But we really felt like the footprint that we had downtown was sufficient. We just needed a bigger building.
They outgrew the old bank for sure. This new bank seemed like an overkill. Oh my gosh, what are they going to do with all those floors and all those offices? And they just kept growing, and they knew ahead what they wanted, and they had their goals.
It was the right thing to do. Kept us in downtown. We made that decision, and we're very pleased with the end product. We think this building's been great.
Downtown is just a gathering place for people. And for Mount McKinley to have a huge structure, I mean, it's like you just took this giant tree and just planted it right in the center of downtown. It's almost like it's spreading roots. So I certainly think that says a lot about Mount McKinley standing in the community, what it means to the community, and what the community means to the bank.
With digital banking, secure apps, and robust lending tools, the bank continues to serve every generation of Alaskans, guided by the same values it was founded on.
It's rock solid in a small community that's seen a lot of ups and downs over the decades, whether they're national or whether they're statewide or whether they're local, and yet the bank is steady. It evolves, it changes, it improves, it adapts, but its core values remain the same from generation to generation.
Mount McKinley Bank is a community bank, and they have been my bank from the very beginning until now, and they're going to be in the future as well, including my kids and now my grandkids.
I think they, gave us our first $1 million maybe 20 years ago, and there's been plenty of millions since then, and I think we're pretty much completely paid off now. So we look forward to moving on to the next bigger project with them.
You know, a bank has to have a mission. You have to develop your mission. And it's not just to pay stockholders dividends. It's always more, no matter what kind of bank you are. And Mount McKinley Bank understands its mission.
It's owned by the community. And that's one of the elements that makes McKinley separate from most other banks in the United States, because the mutual banks have been disappearing. But McKinley Bank will never disappear. It should never be a stock bank. It should be owned and treasured by the community of Fairbanks forever.
This bank is made up of the community, and the board and the corporators are all part of that. And that's one of the things that makes Mount McKinley Bank so special, is that we all come together and are focused on supporting their efforts, and through community donations. It's all the interweaving of the fabric that is so important for Fairbanks and the interior.
Mount McKinley Bank, you know, they've changed, they've grown, but they've always been here. And one thing that's never changed is Mount McKinley Bank still feels like it's the hometown, personal bank that loves the community, because they're not just a bank, they're part of the community.
The success of Fairbanks as a community is tied to Mount McKinley Bank, and Mount McKinley Bank's success benefits the community. I mean, they're joined at the hip.
My wife and I really take pride in knowing that this bank has been here for 60 years. Mount McKinley Bank has been here for 60 years.
And it's all because of all those people who care, the employees, the officers, the board members, the corporators. So it's a matter of remembering that throughout the year and thanking them.
Despite this being a small town with a small number of people, so, you know, Fairbanks, in terms of population, is small town. But Mount McKinley Bank, I think, can stand toe-to-toe with any bank in the country.
Mount McKinley Bank, rock solid since 1965.